the trailer for Mulan, the new movie on Disney Plus. Premiere access, too. They got a new feature on Disney Plus, proving that of any company to do the streaming service thing, I don't really think Disney has I don't want to say they don't have a clue what they're doing, but I don't think Disney really even knows the direction of Disney Plus at this point, because it's a beacon of nostalgia. It's got some lackluster to like passable shows. And now it's evidently the home of movies that can't play in theaters due to the pandemic, which is why Mulan is now available to rent on Disney Plus for the lofty price tag of $30. That is on top of your existing subscription, whatever you may pay monthly for that. But a couple stats, first off, I want to get into with this. This is the most expensive film ever made by a female director. It used to be Wonder Woman. It used to be Wonder Woman with Patty Jenkins, I believe. Now Niki Caro is at the helm of the most expensive film ever made by a woman. Niki Caro is a great director. I followed her for many years. I remember the first movie I ever saw by her was North Country, which is a great movie. Actually, we were kind of joking about this off screen, about unions. That's a really good film. Good drama with Charlize Theron. I don't want to say it's her most famous, but I think she's probably most known for Whale Rider back in 2002, because I think that one did get some Oscar nominations. And then McFarlane USA, which I say is a criminally underrated Disney movie from a few years ago, from about 5 years ago. So Niki Caro's been around. She's made a lot of movies in her day. And it's kind of disappointing, I will say this, for two reasons. One, it sucks that the most expensive movie ever helmed by a female director gets shafted and has to go on video on demand for the circumstances, number one. So that sucks, number one. And number two, I just want to say this would have looked immaculate on a big screen.
Oh, yeah.
This would have looked unbelievable. It looks good on a sufficient television, but the vastness of this movie, like, this is a movie. If people are saying now that, like, there's no reason for theaters because they can all just go to video on demand, this movie proves theaters have their place, because this movie deserves to be seen on the biggest screen possible. The movie itself isn't all the sum of its parts, but it does look very pretty. It's visually dazzling. I want to give a shout out to Mandy Walker, whose cinematography really captures like the vast landscapes of China in just breathtaking fashion. There's some screensaver worthy moments in this movie, and the decoration, you know what I mean? The decorations, the period specific costumes, the lighting, it all looks immaculate. Like, this is the 9-figure budget was put to great use in a lot of respects with this movie. But Mulan, I will say this too before I throw it over to you, Dom. I actually just watched the original animated Mulan for the first time over the weekend. Had never seen it before. Didn't grow up with it. There's a lot of Disney classics I missed. And it's funny, people always tell me whenever I miss these movies, they're like, I'm disappointed you haven't seen Mulan. I always say it's okay. I've seen a lot of great movies you probably never even heard of. So it's, that's what I always tell people. But I liked Mulan, the original. I didn't love it. One, probably because I didn't grow up with it. Number one. Number two, I will say that as a man, it doesn't speak to me probably in the same capacity that it does women in that way. And I think that's a big part of that movie too, is the personal touch. So I think I'm not exempt, but it doesn't resonate with me as much. But number three too, and this is going to be the most controversial opinion of what I just said, Mushu annoyed the hell out of me as a character. He annoyed the hell out of me.
Question to that. What did you think about Robin Williams as the genie in Aladdin?
It's been years since I've seen Aladdin. I remember liking Aladdin more than this, than this one. But the comic relief of Mushu felt especially out of place, especially with Eddie Murphy. In this sort of Chinese folk tale, it felt really out of place. And it doesn't help, I think, even for comic relief, he's given far too many lines. He's given far too much, to the point at some scenes I would argue that he interrupts sort of the coherence of a scene or the dramatic heft of a scene. I would go that far. But it was good. The original Mulan was good. This one, I'm going to say this before I throw it over to Dom. This is no worse than most of the Disney live-action remakes, but it's also not much better. It's not Dumbo-level mediocre, and I would probably say Beauty and the Beast is my favorite of these. It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, I would say Beauty and the Beast might be my favorite of these.
Okay.
It's somewhere in the middle, but it's not anything explicitly special in terms of narrative, in terms of bringing a new sort of focal point or light to Mulan as a story. What say you, Dominic? I'm talking too much.
Yeah, I actually have to agree with that point. I'm glad you brought up the cinematography because the first like opening frames and like the first 30 seconds or 2 minutes of this movie were gorgeous. I love that scene in the just in the field and then she's practicing or whatever. This is before even the proper the sequence where she's in the village. But how are we going hard on spoilers? Not really.
No,
Um,
no,
yeah.
no spoilers.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking about the first minute or two. So that cinematography was actually genuinely did impress me, which is kind of what I was hoping for a live action remake. And going past that, it continued to look pretty damn good. The problem is that every single frame that was beautifully painted here was cut up horribly by editor David Colson. I don't know what you guys thought about the freaking cutting. Oh my God, it was bad. Kept on thinking to myself, okay, am I just nitpicking? I'm totally just nitpicking. No, it just kept on going. The freaking angles were just all over. It felt like I was on Google and like just doing one of those like 360-degree like drag the camera around and like whatever. And it's like every like couple seconds for at least the action sequences. This is so kinetic in the worst way possible. What the hell? And it really took me out of the experience because the proper opening sequence where Mulan is trying to establish herself as a kid was just something else. And that left a really bad taste in my mouth because it kept popping up further along. So I just need to get that out of the way first and foremost, like on a technical level. And even then, like in terms of just general filmmaking, I don't know, something that obviously just set me off on the wrong foot. So after that, I was kind of gunning for it. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to try and temper as I go along here. But something too about like the color saturation was very, how do I put it? It's, again, this is like particularly technical of me. So that might be just how hard I'm going on it.
I like it. You're growing.
Yeah, but like something about the color saturation just felt like candy. I don't know. Is that a way to put it? Not glossy, but it just felt off. Now, granted, I was not in ancient China back then, so maybe that's how it really was. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every movie set in the fields of China needs to look like absolute dog shit, but it's kind of weird because like, what is Mulan going for? Let's move on to that. What is really this remake going for? Is it trying to be realistic? Is it trying to be darker? Is it like, what is its angle that sets it apart from the original? Because no matter how hard I tried my best, and I really did to like take this fairly, I kept on thinking this is a remake of something that was beloved, maybe too much, but beloved by our generation. I think Mulan, at least maybe this is just where I grew up and we all grew up, but for whatever reason, Mulan was more than any other Renaissance movie the one that was beloved, not just by our generation, but by our generation's women in particular. Every single girl in college I went to that loved the Renaissance were like, Mulan, yeah, that's our girl, Mulan, hell yeah. And, you know, it's not hard to see why, because she is a badass in the original and in this one too. But also, like, those music numbers freaking hit. Make a Man Out of You. And
Be a Man is amazing.
Is awesome.
Great.
That is the signature song of the movie. And Mulan's like personal song that she sings in the beginning is great too. And I do love how they brought it into the newer one. And like that particular scene, and I'm going to try to stay focused on the new movie here, but I'll say that the last frame or the last image that we see of Make a Man Out of You, where all the trainees, all the recruits are doing that flying jump kick and they go the hooah, and it's like, and the song ends like, that is freaking iconic. I actually watched the movie again before watching the new one, and it's like, dude, that scene still hits. That is the one thing that you'll remember from this movie because it's great. And that movie is. I do have a kind of a strong bias towards the original Mulan. Not as much as I thought I did looking back on it, because I agree that the Mushu the Mushu character was kind of out of place, even more so than like Robin Williams was. But that's a whole different argument. So going to the new one, I have to ask the world, like, what is the angle of this new one? Because it's so, I'll pass it on to Joe here, but it's so contradictory in the moods it's trying to invoke and the themes that like it's trying to reimagine. And I'm talking in the abstract here, but it's like, what was it for? What was it for other than, of course, the cash grab? So I guess, Joe, can you show me the light here? Can you piece together what I was rambling on about? I'm sorry. Or you can do your own thing.
I'll try to do a little bit of both. I'm going to start by saying this. I love the original Mulan. I am one of those people that grew up loving it. I was Mushu for Halloween. When I was like a little kid. I will admit, though,
it didn't happen. Pixar, it didn't happen.
My next background for our next review, I'll have it up there for like a split second. And I will say, yeah, like I did rewatch the original animated one tons of times, and like as I got older, yeah, Mushu, I could totally see the criticism. I think it's just my nostalgia that like makes it just slide by for me compared to like the genie in Aladdin that I love so much.
And I don't have that.
Yeah, no, totally.
Mulan,
so when they announced this remake, I haven't been actually liking at least 90% of these Disney remakes. I just think they're either okay to bad. The only one I actually truly do like, before seeing Mulan, was The Jungle Book by Jon Favreau. I thought that one was actually pretty well done. The other ones I just thought were all right and everything, because I feel like a lot of them are just hitting the same marks and just literally copying and pasting the same movie but in live action. We saw that with, again, Jon Favreau's Lion King. That came out, I think, last year. Yes. Even the Aladdin remake, I think that one's all right, but I mean, I totally see that, like, there wasn't anything really new added into that film, and it is a lot of copy and paste throughout most of that movie. So when Mulan was announced, I was like, damn, they're finally getting to the ones that I really love. Beauty and the Beast was another one I grew up loving as a kid, and I thought that one was all right. Sorry, Steve.
I think Beauty and the Beast was the most copy paste out of all of them. Yeah, personally.
I just thought like set design and everything was really well done. So when I heard
I totally forgot about the Jungle Book. I would probably put the Jungle Book above Beauty and the Beast now, thinking about that again. Yeah. So
okay. When I heard that Mulan was being remade, I'm like, damn, they're just gonna copy and paste everything. But then I heard they're actually gonna go more with the folk tale of this, and they're actually gonna try to do it in the style of Chinese filmmaking, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or IP Man, or Ip Man, or whatever it's pronounced as. And I was like, oh my god, that's a great idea. And I would say this. The entire time I watched this movie, I was so happy to see that it's not literally beat for beat. They do some of their own things. They add in like a couple new characters here and there. They don't have Mushu, which I was happy about because honestly, I don't want to see a live-action Mushu voiced by Kevin Hart flying around with her.
Yes. Oh, it totally would have been Kevin Hart. 100%.
Bro.
And like I'm like, God, and the production of this movie, as we've been saying, is beautiful. The money shows between the armor, where the cinematography, the sets, everything. That 200 million really shows here. I was blown away by all of that. And it's like, damn, everything about this movie is coming together except for the personality. There was no personality here whatsoever. It is so dry, and I leave that not even to the actors. I think it's honestly just the script at the very end of it, because I thought Liu Yifei, I thought she was fine as Mulan. It's just that they didn't give her time really to shine. There's not really like a big moment where you're like, oh my god, yes, Mulan, you're like, you're gonna do it, you're gonna join the army, and like, you're gonna help your father and everything. I barely didn't feel that at all throughout this whole film, and I felt that watching the animated one again and everything. Like when she takes on the Mongolians at the very end, just as Mulan, not dressed up as a soldier pretending to be a guy, I felt like, oh my god, yes, finally, in this 2020 remake, when you get to that same point in this film, I didn't care. I honestly, it was just like, wow, like I don't feel anything here. I don't feel anything for any of these characters. Donnie Yen, all of them. Like even at least with the animated version, those like secondary characters in the army, they at least have some personality to them. If you like them or hate them, then, like that's your own thought. Because I've seen people go both ways. They find those like the male, like the three Poe and all of them, like the tough guy, the big guy, and the skinny one. They find them either annoying or lovable, but at least they have a personality to them. The ones in this movie, they're just blank slates to me. That like they could have died off and I would have not noticed. And honestly, that when it comes down to it, Everything about this movie is great, but its personality and its story, you just don't care. None of that. All that effort that was put into everything else about this movie is not here when it comes to the story of Mulan.
I will say you did jack my next point about how I was going to say that this movie doesn't live up to the visual personality it so consistently displays.
Yeah.
I think another problem too, and this is just me going off of having seen both Mulan films in the last 48 hours. I'll say this too. Gone in this version is Mulan using her wit and intelligence to compensate for her physical limitations.
Dude, what the hell?
There was no
Yeah,
mountain scene with the rocket.
There was no element for her to show that like she's more than just brawn or like she has to overcome limitations. They made her into a superhero. That's pretty much what they did. They made her into like a Wonder Woman kind of clone. And that almost speaks to what I guess studios think we demand now as a culture and a society is these stories retold with like a superhero context, because this movie beat by beat is very similar to a Marvel movie. From the quick cuts, and I agree with Dom in that this movie is not a marquee editing job by any means, especially in the fight scenes. It's a lot like a Marvel movie though. You have like this indestructible protagonist over here who doesn't show a whole great deal of emotion, nor does really anybody else. But that was my main problem, though, is that gone is the humanization behind Mulan. That even though I thought the original did have its own shortcomings, that was never lost. There was never a moment I didn't buy into Mulan as somebody worthy of a movie or worthy of a heroic story. Because she is a powerful protagonist and remembered for good reason, but they rob her so much of her humanity in this one.
I mean, I'll even bring the characterization of, kind of thin characters, thin supporting characters, at least supporting characters. I'll even bring that to the original like Renaissance movies. It's like a Disney bad habit where it's like, yeah, you market the hell. Like if you look at marketing, like, yeah, Mushu is marketed like crazy, friggin'. I'm trying to think of like Disney secondary characters, all those characters that you find in your marketing and your merchandise and whatever, and people talk about, exactly. Olaf and all that stuff. People freaking love. Even Olaf, I think, can be an aside because I think he got more screen time in the second Frozen movie. I forget. But if you really think about it, how much characterization did like Po from the original Mulan get? Not much, other than he was the big guy who ate a lot and the only girl, he doesn't care what she looks like as long as she cooks. Which Chelsea was like, that's my man right there. But it's like, you really go back to the source material. Maybe if they're lucky, they'll get their own song. But beyond that, it's not as deep of a well as you probably think it is. And it's probably your nostalgia and your memories working overtime to make them into something that you really love, which is fine. It's not a crime, to love character who just sings a song really well, sings that one catchy tune. That's perfectly fine. But then when you translate that into a remake, and it's almost like the movie is acknowledging all of these characters, like Cricket, who is now a human. They could have just written them off like Mushu, but no, Cricket is now a human character who is like, it's like, and then like he steals some of Mulan's naivete and like innocence and kind of not wimpiness, but like her frightfulness by having Cricket absorb all of that. Okay, well now you're just siphoning off characterization even more one note, even thinner into these extra characters you've brought over, or at least retranslated into this new version, and it just becomes more vapid, which is my vocab word of the past month. I think I've used that a lot, but still it is, and it doesn't sit well in the final product when by climax, by culmination, you're like, oh, Cricket, yeah, hey, Po, and it's like, hey, they're all doing the thing. I'm like, no, what did you build up to? As Joe was saying, what did you build this up to? It doesn't mean anything. Even if Mulan is doing kick flips with spears and stuff, it looks awesome, like on paper, and I'm sure in the isolated editing bay, Niki Caro was like, yo, that looks badass. And it is badass in isolation, but we don't really care beyond that. And yeah, the badassery takes away from the original intent of the movie, and there's so much contradictory in the final product of this remake. I don't know if we want to get into final thoughts, but the product of this remake, and we've seen this, at least I've seen this habit, this pattern amongst all the remakes, is that the final product has so much less soul, just from the sum of its parts, the loss of the expressiveness of animation. You gentlemen tell me, how much did the new Lion King lose from having super realistic facial expressions on all the animals as opposed to the hand-drawn ones or the animated ones? Was there something lost there? Because I didn't see it. So you gentlemen have to tell me. I have to pose that question to you.
I won't be long on this. It lost damn near everything in translation.
Okay. That's what I heard.
It lost damn near everything in that. It was hollow, and it lacked the imagination. And it's the same. This is probably a horrible example, but I just want to say this.
Sure.
It reminded me in a way. It wasn't as bad as The Last Airbender, but I will say this. No. Here's where I'm going with this. Hear me out. Here's where I'm going. The Lion King was not a good movie, but where it reminded me of The Last Airbender was its fatal flaw was making a movie live action out of material that was born to be animated. That's my problem. It's the same. And again, this is maybe even a worse example. It's like when they made those crappy live action Fairly Odd Parents movies.
Oh, God.
This is material that is supposed to be animation. That's why the medium was fucking made. Okay. And then you're going to bring it into real life. You rob all the emotion out of the characters. And then you're watching the same beat by beat stuff from the original Lion King, which you grew up with and probably love. And it's hollow. That's the word. What would you say, Joe? What did it lose?
No, you nailed it. You watch, what's his name? Who played Simba? Donald Glover, right?
Donald Glover.
Yeah. You watch him voice him, and there's just no emotion to it, and it doesn't help that. Yeah, it just looks like a lion. There's no big eyes that emote. There's no emotion to it because they have to keep it constructed to an actual lion's face. You can't see a lion get sad with his big eyes when, Mufasa gets trampled. You can't see that in the live action version because it has to stay within that whole boundary of this is a cub. I mean, this is a cub. This is a baby lion, and this is a grown-up lion. These are facial structures that we can work with. You totally nailed it with your example.
And is this new Mulan trying to be darker and grittier by having Mulan concertedly arrow and freaking slice?
I wouldn't say darker. I do think they want to make they wanted to obviously make a PG-13 version of this. They wanted to actually show the war and everything. They wanted to make an action film here. They definitely wanted to do that. Especially with it being influenced by, like I said, Chinese filmmaking, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and all those films. Because you can see that with its choreo whenever that doesn't cut right away from a shot. That's how I feel like the goal was for them here. The problem was, though, is that I felt like they were just too focused on making all that. They just forgot to tell, a damn story with it.
Yeah. Or infuse any emotion. And the other problem is, too, I'm getting really tired. I already used my one F-bomb, so I can't use it again. I'm getting absolutely tired of these mainstream movies whose biggest theme to offer and focus on is family. Because the other thing, I mean, it's the end credits song, too, for Christ's sake. The whole end credits song is about family as well. The movie Mulan doesn't really know what it wants to say either. Is it a critique of the patriarchy? That's what I kind of thought when they introduced Gong Li's witch character, who really feels underdeveloped. Feels underdeveloped. You
take out Mushu, but you're gonna throw in a witch. What?
Is it about family? Is it about a birth of a hero? What's it about?
That whole plot line is brought in way too late. When she starts bringing up how I'm just a slave basically because I'm this powerful woman. I can't exist in a man's world basically. It's just we have 20 minutes left. You can't be introducing this right now because here comes the big climax that we have to have.
Yeah, introducing a significant character when the movie's more than half over. What is this, Artemis Fowl? Like,
Oh my
yeah,
god. Yo, it felt
no,
like that. Hey, yo, it felt like that.
Oh, I'm not gonna.
yeah.
No, I will never say it
I'm
felt
not
like
gonna.
that.
I'm not gonna go that far. That's far and away the worst film of the year. But no, but that's the other problem too, because I was even thinking this, and I think it even goes back to Dom's earlier point of like the quick cuts in this movie. It feels like this movie, in some parts, was eviscerated in editing. There's
Yeah.
characters that don't really have full storylines. There's tangents that I don't think we really revisit. I think Gong Li's witch is really the main point here. There was so much. There's a handful of things that really felt like they needed more time to cook, but they didn't want to make this a 2.5 hour movie for understandable reasons. So they had to really sacrifice some plot in the editing room, and it starts to show when you start introducing characters an hour and 20 minutes in.
And I think that, like, I don't think we can lay all of this blame on director Niki Caro herself. And because I think this is, I can't confirm any of this. This is conjecture until more evidence pops up, any evidence pops up, because I'd love to see the behind the scenes here. But particularly because I think China did have involvement with how this movie was made, right? Because I think a couple scenes were shot in China, and I know there's like a whole thing about the lead actress Liu Yifei, about how she's not supporting the Hong Kong protesters or something like that. We don't need to get into that.
Get into
today.
that.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's for
But
somebody
like,
else.
I think this might be another example, if proven, of just Disney flexing, the studio higher-ups flexing too much of its power into the creative process. Because I've never seen a Niki Caro film. That's my fault. But according to you, Steve, she's made some great films. So like, I guess, but then like, has she ever made anything this big before? No, because this is the most expensive movie ever made by a female director. So at that level, I have to think, was there, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands in the pot? This might be a Star Wars scenario too, where not that Kathleen Kennedy was involved here, but maybe a Kathleen Kennedy type started getting into, a little more subtly, but started getting into like how it was shot. Particularly, again, I bring up China. I bring up China again because things are getting real dicey with how American companies, how they look to China, how they, operate business in China, how their PR is handled in China. Be very careful about how you toe that line. I'm going to say something spicy here, and that I think the NBA is super happy that kind of like police brutality in Black America, they're at it again, because then they can completely sweep under the rug the whole China thing about how they handled the China situation back earlier before that.
If you followed that with the Rockets GM, that Daryl Morey.
Oh yeah.
If you followed that, yeah.
So the NBA and Nike is like, oh, thank God, thank you. So we can do Black Lives Matter. We can just coast on that for the rest of the year.
Commissioner Adam Silver was relieved by that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that, just the general politics of it, I guess even international politics, but studio politics, just from the pattern we've seen amongst Disney properties, that I think that might have played a role here. Should evidence of that arise, it probably won't, because anything involving China gets super, super dicey, especially high up on that level high up on the ladder with Disney. So, yeah. Tricky.
I want to give a speedy final thoughts over here so we can still have time to talk to Godfather, kind of go into Sleepless OT. I give it 2 out of 4 stars, and I hate to do it because I think this might be, I have to really probably dive deeper into like really analyze what I've seen over the year. This might indeed be the best looking movie of 2020. I certainly think you could at least make the argument that it is definitely one of the best movies. It's really not hard because we've just had a summer devoid of blockbusters. So, I mean, maybe that's not the glowing praise I'm making it out to be, but it still counts for something. It's a gorgeous movie. Again, Mandy Walker, tremendous cinematographer, has worked with some great directors in her career. And it comes off here. And I think Niki Caro, I think she does bring a vision here. On top of the lack of emotion, as Joe stated, which is a problem. And my main issue really, is how they made Mulan into a superhero instead of a regular person, to be, for lack of a better term. I would also say too, the other fatal flaw for this thing is that it just doesn't know what it wants to be or what story to tell, because kids are not this movie's I think it's too mature for kids under 10. I really do. I think it's too violent, and I think it's a little bit too lofty in some respects. And I also just don't think kids under 10 are really going to take much enjoyment out of this. And also too, even the older kids at a certain point, I would be more inclined to show them the classic Mulan than this. This is an empty candy wrapper. It's a beautiful looking movie. It's decently acted. Liu Yifei isn't bad. She really isn't bad. She's just not given a whole lot to do, as Joe said. So for me, it's a disappointing 2 out of 4 stars. But at this point, with these Disney live action remakes, I mean, outside of the Jungle Book and Beauty and the Beast, which I would consider good, this is down there with Dumbo, honestly, as far as it's needless, and it, despite a promising director like Dumbo had Tim Burton, it doesn't bring much grand to the actual story. It's not worth telling this story again the way they did it. That's what I'll say.
Dom, you can go.
This is what, the 6th, 7th Disney live action remake.
8th.
So
it's 8th.
Oh, seriously, 8th? Oh my god.
It's either 8th or 9th at this point.
Yeah, dude, it's like, how can you keep doing this? Like, how can you keep getting away with this? And it's like, it's very regrettable, because we opened the show with about how, we're hopeful about more inclusion writers, more diverse casting that goes beyond stereotypes. And I love the idea. Of a female directed movie that celebrates the Ballad of Mulan, which is apparently fictional folklore from China, from northern China. Like, that is a real thing that was adapted. And I love the idea that can be given, a story to come to life in live action, and even be remade in the live action sphere. It's just that, after all the diversity is all good, well and done, you need to make a good movie after that. And it's that needs to be part of where you start. And it's just regrettable that we wind up with something so empty when you have such a great opportunity, when we've learned so many lessons over the past decade alone of things like Oscars So White, you've already kind of made very similar mistakes with the Star Wars sequel trilogy, and which is a immediate trigger word for all the Star Wars fans out there. But like, I'm seeing a lot of parallels here that I know, right? But you're gonna make the same mistakes, and I might have to like toe the wire again of like, well, no, yeah, it's good that the Chinese diverse cast, but I hate doing that. But here we are again, dude. Like, 1.5 out of 4, dude. This is really disappointing now. And it's like the more they keep doing
1.5.
Yeah, dude. It's
Wow.
like you had 8 lessons to learn. Actually 7, because I think Kate Blanchett bore Cinderella on her shoulders like Atlas. But like, dude, it's what are we doing here, dude?
For me, I guess I'm gonna be the easiest going person on the movie, because while like I was disappointed in it, I do appreciate everything technical about the movie. It is beautiful looking. I thought it was great in that regards, and I just wasn't as hard on like some of the stuff that Dom or even Steve pointed out. But for me, yeah, I mean, this is disappointing, man. I was looking forward to this one the most because like of how much they were taking out and how much they were changing. Before it was coming out, like the news of Mushu not being there, it's not gonna be music. I was like, all right, finally, like it's not gonna be copy and paste on here. And then when we get for the final product, it's just like, well, it wasn't copy paste, but damn, it didn't have anything like the original at least gave me in terms of heart. For me, the original to me is like 3.5 out of 4 stars. This is 2.5 out of 4 stars for me.
And a half, okay.
Yeah, I'll give it a little half.
I was close on 2.5 myself. I really was,
Yeah.
but excellent review. I thought that was an excellent review from the 3 of us. One of our best in the show, if I do say so myself.